You are welcome to today's episode of Chronicles of a Nigerian Woman. My name is Fagbeja, and today I'll be reading Anthonia's story. I grew up in considerable comfort. My parents were both career focused. My mom was a banker and my dad worked with a multinational. Money was never a problem in our family. And even though my parents gave us the best of everything, they didn't really spoil us either. One important virtue they instilled in us was generosity. They often took us to orphanages, and each time we had to pick at least one toy or book that we loved to give, apart from the general items we donated. They taught us to recognize and care for the plight of the poor, with the understanding that we were more privileged than many people around us. This made me particularly sympathetic to anyone who was in need, and I was always ready to lend a hand. University was my first real interaction with people from different social classes. We went to private primary and secondary schools, so everyone around us was relatively in the same class. I found opportunities to be generous in my younger years, but there was no one in severe need, and I never met anyone like that until I became roommates with Ruth. Ruth had a rough background, and you could tell, though she tried to cover it up. She spoke well, but added a feigned accent. Her clothes were old, and she only had one pair of old shoes and some worn-out trainers. She barely brought any food and other supplies to school, and she had to borrow from the other three of us in the room. Over time, she became closer to me than the others. We were about the same size, so whenever she complimented any of my clothes, I would give it to her. I brought less than half of my wardrobe to school, and I got even more things when family members traveled. I gave her a few pairs of shoes as well. I felt that she should at least look good. I guess my sympathy drew her to me even more. I sometimes gave her money, and I shared my food with her too. When we got into our second year, she could not afford to pay for a room, so I invited her to stay with me. Everything seemed fine until Ruth started taking my things without permission. Because we shared a space, she also shared my cupboard and had a key. Some days I would return to the room and find that she had worn one of my outfits or shoes. I wasn't very comfortable sharing clothes, so I would eventually give it to her once she had worn it. When I complained, she would go into a mood and give me the cold shoulder for days, even leaving my bed to share another roommate's bed. Our roommates were always wading into our issues, which I hated because I like to keep my business private. I never told anyone about the things I did for Ruth because I believed that generosity should be kept private. Most people assumed we were related, and I didn't tell them otherwise. I became uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to get rid of her because I knew she had nowhere to go. Moreover, she would eventually come back to apologize to me privately. One day, I got back and found that a large part of my money was missing. When she got back and I confronted her, she broke down in tears saying that she borrowed it to pay up her school fees. I was livid and I didn't believe her because she had told me earlier in the semester about how an uncle had come through and given her money for her school fees. When I mentioned that, she denied it. We were alone when I confronted her, and because I was angry, I left to stay with some other friends. By the time I returned to the room at night, Ruth's eyes were swollen from crying. She had told our roommates that I accused her of stealing my money, even after she explained herself and had promised to pay back. They all decided to contribute the money and refund it to me. I refused, but they insisted. I became an outcast in my own room. They would stop speaking when I came in, and they would share food or snacks and leave me out, etc. Ruth made a show of not wanting to touch my things, but I knew she was pretending. After a week, my roommates came together to tell me that I had punished her long enough. I wasn't even doing anything to her, but when she came and knelt down openly, I didn't know how to handle it, so I just told her it was okay and I had forgiven her. I became more guarded with my things, locking them in a suitcase and leaving the cupboard for her. You would have thought she owned the space. But I was yet to see the worst of Ruth. My eldest brother visited me one day and met her. Unknown to me, she got his business card before he left. I was shocked when my brother came 3 weeks later to take Ruth out. She hadn't mentioned it, and I knew she was up to no good. I confronted her later, and within minutes, my brother called me angrily, telling me to leave her alone, among many other unpleasant things he said. He would come to school and take her out without even seeing me. Eventually, he got her a room in a private hostel outside the school. She stopped talking to me, and my relationship with my brother became terse because she told him that I ill-treated her while she stayed with me. She was an angel to my brother, but I knew she was evil. Things got worse when he told my parents about it. My dad saw my angle, but Ruth got through to my mom, and eventually my dad asked me to let things be. My brother married Ruth the year after we left school. It's been 10 years, and although he doesn't say it, it is clear that his life has been a quiet hell. There is a wedge between him and the rest of the family. My parents visit them once or twice a year, while Ruth's mom stays almost permanently with them, allegedly to help with the kids. Ruth does not work, and my brother caters for her parents and her siblings. I am not welcome in their home because she has convinced my brother that I do not like her. He is blinded by her opinions. My mom can now see some of the things I said, but it is too late to do anything about it. As much as I hate to say it, I cursed the day I met Ruth, and I blame myself for not getting rid of her when I started to notice her untoward behavior. What do you think about Anthonia and Ruth's relationship? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of my stories.